If you've been gaming for as long as I have, chances are you've had that moment. The moment where you go from loving a game to absolutely, positively hating it. The specific game might be different for everybody, but the experience is universal. One day you're raving to your friends, you have to try this game, it's amazing. The next, you're rage quitting, uninstalling, and leaving a scathing Steam review, wondering what the heck went wrong. So what exactly changes during this whole transformation? Did the game actually get worse, or did something else change in you? Well, usually this sequence of events always starts with something called the honeymoon phase. The honeymoon phase is one of the best parts of playing a new game. It's fresh, it's exciting, it's, well, new. Everything you do feels meaningful because you're discovering it for the very first time. There's a sense of awe in that early period. Sometimes you might get overwhelmed, but in a good way. The map is full of possibilities, the combat feels exciting, the systems are deep, but you haven't hit any of their limits yet. You're not worried about stats or min-maxing or efficiency, you're just having fun. You're exploring, dying in stupid ways and laughing about it. And here's the important part about all of this. In the honeymoon phase, you give yourself permission to suck. You see, you're still learning. Failure is expected. So when something goes wrong, it doesn't feel like a failure, it feels more like progress. The early game is often designed to be the most rewarding. Levels come fast, gear drops regularly, tutorials are hidden inside of story missions, you're being gently guided without even fully realizing it, and your dopamine is firing like crazy. That is intentional. And when that reward loop is fresh and tied to new discovery, it's magical. But the moment you stop discovering and start expecting, that's when the clock starts ticking. It's easy to love a game when it hasn't demanded anything from you yet, but play a game long enough, and you'll find yourself in phase 2. Eventually, you figure it out. These systems make sense, you're pulling off combos, you found your main weapon, maybe you've even beaten a few bosses, and suddenly you become more confident. You go from, I'm learning this game, to, I've got this game. You feel like you could take on anything the game throws at you. And then it's at this moment where you start losing. Like, a lot. And it doesn't feel like part of the same process anymore. It feels almost like an insult. Because now you know what you're doing, right? You've read the guides, you've watched the YouTubers play this game, you've practiced the strats. So why are you still dying at this one part in the game? Why does this player keep outsmarting you? Why did you lose again? This is what's called the illusion of mastery. At this point, you feel like you figured the game out, but you haven't internalized the deeper skills yet. You know the what, but not the why. And when you lose at that stage, your brain doesn't say, I'm still learning. It says, I suck. It's the same in real life too, by the way. When you first start to learn to drive, you're nervous, but nobody expects you to parallel park perfectly. When you start a new job, nobody expects you to know how to do everything in your first week. But a few months later, now your mistakes feel embarrassing. That shift in expectation is what turns innocent failure into personal frustration. In video games, this is when frustration begins to creep in. You feel like you should be better, but you're not. And that gap between what you expect of yourself and what is actually happening, that is the beginning of burnout. Once you feel like you're good enough at the game changes, especially in competitive games. Ranked modes, MMR systems, visible stats, suddenly your value as a player is being measured and compared. And here's the worst part. Games are now matching you against other players who are exactly as good as you. Which sounds fair in theory until you realize that it means you're going to be winning exactly 50% of the time. That's not always fun. It's not designed to be fun. It's not designed to feel fair. It's designed to be balanced. At this stage, players often become more self-conscious. They review their matches, they get tilted when teammates underperform, they blame lag, matchmaking, netcode, or some other fault that is out of their control because losing now feels avoidable. You didn't die because you were learning, you died because you made a mistake, and that is frustrating. And if you're someone who ties your sense of identity or skill to how well you perform in games, this is where things start to spiral. The game becomes less about having fun and more about proving something. You're not playing for enjoyment anymore. You're playing to win back your dignity that you lost. You start chasing a high you only got during the honeymoon phase. The ease, the discovery, the feeling of progress. But now everything feels like work. Then comes the grind. Maybe you've beaten the story at this point. Maybe you've hit max level. Or maybe you're deep into the endgame or ranked ladder. But the goals now have shifted. They're no longer about discovering or experiencing. They're about maintaining, optimizing, and grinding. You start thinking about efficiency. How fast can I level up? How quickly can I hit the next tier in ranked? Which gear pieces will give me an additional 2% of DPS? This is where many games become more like spreadsheets than adventures. You log in because you feel like you have to. And what's dangerous is that the game is still functioning. It still works. But you're not playing from a place of joy anymore. You're playing from obligation. And when that happens, frustration doesn't just come from failure, it comes from fatigue. You're emotionally exhausted, but you're still playing. Why? Because you don't want to fall behind. Because of FOMO. Because of sunk cost. You spent all of this time learning the game, building this character, improving your stats, and it just doesn't make any sense to walk away now. Not when you've done all of this work. What started as fun has become maintenance, and unless the game has a way of renewing itself with fresh mechanics, new challenges, or a complete shift in tone, you start to feel trapped in a cycle of diminishing returns, eventually hitting your breaking point. Eventually, something will push you over the edge. Maybe it's a bug that just deletes all of your gear, a losing streak, or maybe a nerf to your favorite character. Maybe it's nothing specific, it's just an overall feeling of, I'm done. This is the moment when love turns to hate. What's wild is that nothing may have changed about the game, but everything has changed about your experience of it. And it's because the emotional contract between you and the game has now been broken. You expected it to feel good, but now it just feels wrong. Sometimes you uninstall, sometimes you just stop logging in, sometimes you force yourself to keep playing, hoping that the magic you experienced in the honeymoon phase will come back, but it rarely does. And if you've made it this far into the video, then chances are you're probably wondering, well, how can I prevent all of this from even happening? Or how can I enjoy this game again the same way if I've hit the breaking point? The truth is, you can't. At least, you can't go back to the honeymoon phase, the way you experience it for the very first time. That sense of wonder, that first time excitement, it's tied to discovery, and once something has been discovered, it can't be undiscovered. This is why so many people say that they wish they could play their favorite game again for the very first time, because only by wiping your memory completely and replaying it again will that magic come back. But that doesn't mean that the magic is gone forever. The key isn't trying to relive that early game, it's learning how to redefine what fun looks like as you evolve with the game. Sometimes that means stepping away and coming back later with fresh eyes. Sometimes it means finding new ways to play that make the game feel unpredictable again. And sometimes it means letting go. Not every game is meant to last forever. Just because the honeymoon ended doesn't mean the relationship failed. It just ran its course, and that is okay. The good news is there's always another game, another world, and another fresh start. So instead of mourning the end of the honeymoon, celebrate that you even had one. And when you're ready, chase that feeling again somewhere new. Because maybe that secret isn't to try and make one game feel like magic forever, but to fall in love with gaming again and again and again. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I really hope you guys liked it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help the channel grow. Really appreciative for 10,000 subscribers. Like, that's crazy. Thanks so much for 10,000 subscribers. Please let me know down below, what is the game that made you rage quit the most? What is your version of this video? I'd love to know what you guys have to say. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.